This is a short review of the distinction between absolute difference and percent difference. Both of these metrics, or statistics, are ways of conveying the magnitude or size of differences. For example, you might know that Jim is taller than Joe, but you need some way of conveying how much taller Jim is than Joe. Or in the scientific context of a clinical trial, you might know that the intervention group has done better than the control group. But how much better? What statistic best conveys that? Let's start with a comic that illustrates the problem. Here's the comic in 6 panels. Let's look at them one by one. Here's a guy driving along in his car. He says, "I can't wait to get my Super Whiz TV. I know that the MSRP is $500. Should I go to Chips Cheapies or Bill's Bargains?" And he sees 2 different billboards that both suggest that Chips Cheapies is cheaper. But they say that in different ways. The one on the left says that Chips is cheaper, and he will save $4 more than he would at Bill's. And he thinks that sounds like a small difference. They're pretty much the same. But the one on the right says that he'll save 40% more if he goes to Chips. That sounds like a big difference. What's going on? Which billboard is right? Both are right mathematically, and this professor is going to show you the calculations shortly, using formulas that you will learn in this video in just a moment. She starts with the facts of the case, the data. The MSRP for the TV is $500. Chips sells it for $486 and Bill sells it for $490. What you're seeing on the left is that if you calculate the difference in terms of the difference in dollar amount, you get that Chips saves you $4. But if you calculate that difference in terms of the percent more saved, you get another figure, that's 40%. These 2 differences of measure are called on the left absolute difference and on the right percent difference. Here's what today's takeaway will be. The size of the difference between 2 things, or 2 groups, can be expressed using various statistics, or various numbers. Your choice of statistic to communicate size will influence your audience's perception of the magnitude and importance of the difference. So the calculations in the comic strip went by quickly. Let's zero in on them a bit by looking at some generic data. Let's start by talking in general terms, using letters like A, B, C, and so forth, rather than working with numbers. To calculate absolute and percent difference, you will always be given 4 numbers to start with, and you will calculate 4 numbers. The ones that you are given are shown in green on the left, and the ones that you'll calculate are shown in blue on the right. So let's call those 4 numbers that you're going to start with A, B, C, and D, and these are scores for the treatment and comparison groups. For example, A is the treatment group's initial or baseline score, and B is the treatment group's follow-up score. You'll begin by calculating E and F, the drop or the difference between the initial and follow-up scores for each group, first for the treatment group and then for the comparison group. Then you'll calculate G, the difference in the drop between the treatment and control group. Finally, calculate H, the percent difference in drop between the treatment and comparison groups. The formulas are summarized in this slide. Note that the names for G and H are the absolute difference for G and the percent difference for H. With that in mind, let's apply the formulas to the Chips Cheapies Bill's Bargains data. The 4 numbers that you are given are for Chips, the MSRP is $500, and in this example, the store price is $486. For Bill's, same MSRP with a store price of $490. Calculate the first 2 numbers using the formulas, and you do a set of subtractions. Chips customers save $14 and Bill's customers save $10. You then calculate the difference in savings between the 2 groups, and that's $4. Chips customers save $4 more than Bill's do. Finally, calculate the percent difference in savings between the 2. You get a value of 40. That means that Chips customers save 40% more than Bill's do. So let's summarize those last 2 slides. One statistic, the one on the left, $4, makes the difference sound small, and the other on the right, 40%, makes the difference sound big. The one on the right, percent difference, is notoriously misleading. It tends to exaggerate the size of differences. This is especially true when the denominator of the percent difference calculation is small, as it is in this case. It's only $10. Here's today's takeaway. The size of the difference between groups can be expressed using various statistics or various numbers. Your choice in this case between the absolute difference and the percent difference will influence your audience's perception of the magnitude and importance of that difference. What's the upshot? Be transparent and clear. Always express differences as absolute differences so that your audience can decide for themselves whether that difference is big or small. Include percent differences alongside absolute differences if you wish, but percent differences alone are probably best left to situations where you're trying to sell something, like TVs. That's it. Thanks for listening.